Welcome everyone, Adam the Woo here. Today, I want to talk about an event that changed one man's life forever. It's my second channel, daily vlog channel. It's the Daily Woo.
Have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too.
Thank you.
Have a good one, thank you. It is much easier to navigate around cities by using rides instead of trying to bring the RV down here. It would have been an early morning just like this over 50 years ago that he arrived to work here at the Dal-Tex building. His office was on the 4th floor, so 1, 2, 3, right up there. As he walked in the door towards the elevators, he had no idea how the rest of the day would unfold. Did he stand at this railing looking down before wandering into his office? He was a clothing manufacturer, and this is where the base of operation was of what he was known for till that moment. His name? Abraham Zapruder. Even though that is what he did for a living, he had a hobby of making movies. But little did he know that shortly after noon, walking out those doors on November 22nd, 1963, he would be documenting the most famous home movie in history. Originally, he left his camera at home because it was too overcast. He thought, I'm probably not even going to be able to get any good footage. His secretary convinced him to go back to his home, grab the camera, and come down here and film it. The streets were lined with people. He made his way down this very sidewalk into Dealey Plaza. After a quick survey of the landscape on where he could stand to get the best angle of this event, 3 or 4 places came to mind, but he ultimately decided on this spot right here. Since the rain had cleared up and he had his camera in hand, it's a good thing that he opted not to film like originally he had planned from his 4th floor window, but instead on top of what is now referred to as the grassy knoll. With the help of his secretary, Marilyn Stitzman, he climbed and stood right there to get the best possible angle of the presidential motorcade. Now I, myself, of course, make videos, and I have that mindset as well. Where can I stand? What angle can I get to best document an experience? And I must say, like him, I would have also chosen that exact spot. I would have walked up the hill, walked up these 3 stairs, placed my hands and legs on the side of this structure, and stood in this very spot as well. I'm not gonna lie, I just got some chills just then. Wow. And by him choosing that location, he was the closest photographer to document that moment. Over the last half a century, there have been a multitude of movies, documentaries, interviews, newspaper articles, books written on the subject of what happened that day. There is nothing that I can add that has not already been said. But as I stand here next to the triple overpass, that car going in the same direction that Kennedy's vehicle did, that famous photo, taking off towards the hospital, I cannot help think about the other theories that people have, like the one of a shooter behind this fence line. Some have even formulated the opinion that someone was inside this manhole shooting that way. And others have said the gentleman who was standing here at that moment with a huge umbrella somehow had something to do with it. Truth be told, we will never know the answer. But what I do know is Mr. Zapruder stood right there and documented the entire experience. Those 486 teeny frames of film, only 26.6 seconds was shot right there, 65 feet from the spot of impact. And this has gone on to be the most investigated, the most watched, the most Columbo-like research skills have been done on this half a minute of documented camera footage than has ever been done on anything ever recorded. Once again, I have climbed back up here just to give you a perspective of the exact angle in real time of that moment in history. A few things have changed, like the light poles are in different areas. The big sign here is no longer there. And right as John F. Kennedy in his car passed that sign was the first moment when a bullet struck, designated by this X on the ground there. The car continued on this way. And the shot heard round the world, if you will, happened right there. One thing people are confused about are these monuments here all along Dealey Plaza. These were not erected after the death of President John F. Kennedy. These were here back in 1963.
1963.
This is a 1963 paper.
Yes, sir.
And there's Johnson there.
Johnson, that's all it is.
And this is all the information of what happened?
Everything. That's the journal. That's 2 cents.
Are you selling these or giving these away?
That's a donation of $20 for
$20.
the set.
I don't have anywhere to carry it, but thank you. I arrived a little early because I knew I would have the whole place to myself. As the day progresses, people start to congregate out here, you know, having paraphernalia, selling things, giving their opinion and whatnot. And I know later in the day, this place will be bustling with activity. And I wanted to get the shots before it got too hectic. The early bird gets the worm, if you will. Sometimes pays off. Over the years, people have written remarks and comments all along the back of the fence line and carved things into these trees. Going back to your office next to the book depository and watching that must have been completely gut-wrenching. In fact, it has been said and written that Mr. Zapruder was beside himself the rest of his life because of that tragic event that he documented. In fact, he never filmed anything else again because it was too painful for him to pick the camera up and look through the viewfinder. We as a society become very desensitized, especially when you see something over and over and over and over, especially after that many years. But imagine back, put yourself in that position, if you will, of being here on that day. Not only was a president's life taken, but a man's life, just like you or I, without notice, taken from this earth in that spot. And those that watched all along the route, standing along the grass, had to witness that firsthand. And the gentleman on that platform had to live the rest of his days knowing that he was the one that showed the world. Originally, he only wanted the film to be used for investigation purposes. He was left with the original copy. The government made a couple copies for themselves.
But this was quite the story, and once the journalists, newsmen, and reporters found out he had it, they came knocking on his door.
But back to the early bird gets the worm theory, there was one gentleman from Time magazine that showed up considerably early to the meeting.
He arrived more than a full hour before the allotted time frame, and there just so happened to be 2 investigators there, and they were about to watch Zapruder's film for the very first time. As they watched through his lens from where he was standing on that structure right across the street, it has been said that the moment they saw the bullet hit JFK's head, all of them gasped out loud.
And just imagine the amount of times he watched that clip over and over, not only in his head, but on that clip that he filmed. Traumatizing.
So overwhelming, in fact, and when you add in the fact that other reporters were then showing up, yelling and screaming, beating on the closed door, he said to Time magazine, "You know what? The footage is yours." At the top of the hill are written out words that were going to be in his speech at the Dallas Trademark building the day he was shot. He never got to say them, but it says, "For all time, the ancient vision of peace on earth and goodwill towards men must always be our goal." I think this gentleman is trying to explain the theory of the manhole to these guys. I think that's what's going on. It should also be noted that Abraham's film was not the only documentation in video form of this event, but his was the clearest, longest, and closest. This is definitely a high traffic spot for tourists. In fact, some buses have arrived, and a lot of people are showing up to get pictures of the location. But it's amazing to me how many people neglect or don't even know about this. There is now a museum up there at the top of the former Texas School Book Depository building. Someone has circled a specific word there for some reason.
I just bought my ticket to the 6th floor museum located up there. There's a little gift shop here that also has coffee. And I got yelled at for trying to film a postcard. True story.
And they were saying that I'm not allowed to shoot any video upstairs as well. Okay, I'm going up, finishing my coffee, heading up the elevator, and I have to turn my phone off. That's what they told me. I am currently on the 7th floor of the former book depository. On the 6th floor, you are not allowed to film, and they are very adamant about that fact. However, if you come up to the 7th floor, they will let you take pictures and film. So I'm basically just a few feet, 8 feet, maybe 10 feet above the window that the shots rang out from. And this would be the angle. Pretty incredible to be standing in this spot when I was 1 floor down. The museum is incredible. It's absolutely worth the price of admission to check out. Very overwhelming, the artifacts and information they have in there. It just blows my mind. There's a girl down there standing on the X as we speak. She's taking a selfie where John F. Kennedy was killed. Wow. Check this out. This is also on the 7th floor, so I'm allowed to document this. This picture of JFK and Jackie. If you look very closely, there's something interesting in the artwork. It is made up of a bunch of tiny photographs of his wife, and you pan out. That's pretty cool. Very cool. And the same goes for her. She's made up of her husband. Pretty interesting.
I have to say, highly recommend, if you're ever in Dallas, check out the 6th floor museum. awesome.
But do not attempt to film. They will yell at you. My recommendation, go to the 7th floor. You kind of get the same perspective. Zapruder did many interviews after that day, and each and every one of them was filled with emotion. And a few of them he even started crying during, because it was such an intense moment in his life. And you really have to let that sink in and just imagine what it was like to be standing here witnessing it in real life. Can't even imagine. That scene has been shown so many times, it almost feels like a movie or a television show or fiction, but it's not. It really happened right there.
This here's what they don't show you when he turned the corner up there. If I can get in the light. See that man right there on the fire escape, that second window open?
Yeah.
That's the moment he grabs his throat. When he turned the corner, they took the fire escape sign down 7 days later.
Oh, really?
Then the freeway sign 8 foot from out here is where it was at.
Yeah, right over there.
This is the reason they took that down. Right here is the Umbrella Man. You
The
got him
Umbrella Man, yeah, I've heard of
here
him.
and here. That's where he's already been shot, so you would have raised the hand.
Some people are either really passionate about this event or trying to make a buck. You also must remember that back then it was rare to own a video camera unless you were news media or very wealthy. Not like today where we all have cameras on our phones. The times have definitely changed.
The bullet should exit down, but it came out of his throat. That's his neck. At his neck is way up here, looking at where he was before he was shot. He moved so suddenly, her eyes couldn't follow the movement.
You're saying the shooter was here.
Behind the picket fence, 8 feet west of the corner.
Check out that old classic car over there. That's pretty cool.
And I'm here with Robert Groden on the grassy knoll, the man that wrote the movie JFK, the Kevin Costner movie, played 4 parts in it himself. But more importantly, he served on every single investigation that the government has ever done on this. No one else in the world served on more than one. We didn't get to see the fluidity of the film until they showed it in 1975. And 18.3 frames per second. And the first one hit the president in the throat. There was a downward angle, came out his back with a hole back here 4 times the size of the entrance. Again, entrance wounds make little holes about the size of a bullet. Exit wounds make bigger holes. In fact, never in the history of firepower on a rifle bullet has a bullet gone into a body, made a big hole going in, and a little hole pop out the other side. It doesn't work that way.
School with all that. Here's the first shot right here.
Do you remember when it happened?
Yeah, I do.
Even as a little kid?
Yeah, well, I was Catholic, and JFK was Catholic, so.
I bet it's pretty puzzling to Uber drivers when you request to be dropped off at a cemetery. But that's what happened. You happen to know where the Zapruder grave is? Abraham Zapruder?
I tell you who will. Right in there. That's the office, and Jeff is in there.
Jeff's in there?
Jeff's in
That's
there.
his name? I'll go ask him.
It may be here somewhere.
All right.
Go ask him.
Okay, thank you. Laid to rest here, next to his wife, is Mr. Zapruder. Born on May 15th, 1905, he passed away just 7 years after he filmed that now famous footage on August 30th, 1970. He was in the right place at the right time. You've done your duty. And you of all people, my friend, can say, vlog over.